Welcome to Homeschool Conversations with Humility and Doxology, a series of real-life conversations with homeschool moms, dads, and other educators. I'm Amy Sloan, a second-generation homeschooling mom of 5, and I am so glad that you are here with us today. You can find the show notes for this interview and all the others in Homeschool Conversations series at humilityanddoxology.com. I am so delighted today to get to introduce you to one of my good friends, Mary Wilson. Mary, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here. This is a lot of fun for me.
Well, Mary is a writer, speaker, and mother to 4 kids ranging from elementary to high school. She believes that creativity, laughter, and fun are the backbone of engaging and inspiring homeschools. On her homeschool blog, Mary Hannah Wilson, she encourages families to embrace the freedom that comes with homeschooling and has been sharing resources, tips, and ideas online since 2015. Mary also just launched a new website, Celebrate a Book, that I'm very excited about, to encourage and support parents as they celebrate literature in little and big ways with their children and friends. Mary lives in North Carolina with her husband and 4 children, which means that sometimes I get to see her in real life, which is really fun.
Yes, it is.
Well, Mary, I know a little bit about you, but I'm so excited for you to get to introduce yourself to my audience. So tell us a little bit about you and your family, and then how you came to homeschooling.
All right. Yes, I'm Mary. I am a mom of 4, and my husband and I do live in North Carolina. My kids are currently 17, 15, 13, and about to be 11. So we'll get that nice odd ages for a little while before someone clicks over and confuses me again. And we have been homeschooling almost the whole time. The only exception is my daughter, who is a freshman, attended school for 7 days this year. But other than that, we have been full-time homeschoolers from the beginning. We have considered the best educational choices for our kids every year. And while others have considered school in the past, only one actually took the plunge and 7 days later decided for herself that actually maybe homeschool was where she wanted to be. So of our story.
And you've had so many years now in the homeschooling world. Have you found that your homeschooling kind of personality or philosophy has changed or developed over the years at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's does a little. I mean, it can't help but change, especially if you've done it from the beginning because you started with all little kids. And now I'm about to have no elementary schoolers. So a lot of stuff has changed. In terms of philosophy, for me, I started in a classical model of classical education, reading all the books there, and then discovered Charlotte Mason and dove into that full force. And I think eventually began to find my own mix of many philosophies, which probably reflects a lot of my personality that loves to jump from one thing to another, never redoing the wheel. So I kind of have pulled the things I love from lots of philosophies, unschooling and relaxed homeschooling and classical and Charlotte Mason, and kind of put them all together in my own little Play-Doh creation of homeschool. And then that continues to change as my kids now bring their own thoughts about homeschooling to the table as they're getting older and figuring out their paths. But in general, we've always stayed kind of a field trip activity, getting outside of our house kind of family, no matter what model we were really following. We just like to draw from lots of different things because they all offer great stuff for us.
Oh, yeah. And I think as I've talked to so many different moms in this homeschool conversation series, especially the moms who have been doing it for a while, this seems to be a common theme where instead of having a homeschool kind of philosophy dictate to you all the things you have to do, um, the longer we do this, the more freedom we realize we have to take the principles and then apply them in the way that best fits our own family, and then kind of become our own eclectic unique blend of all the best ideas that work for our family, which I
Yeah.
think is one of the best parts of homeschooling.
Oh, I totally agree. And for what works with individual kids, because I even have, certain children who certain aspects of, say, a classical model really suits them and they just want to eat up, where other kids kind of fault that system. So, you can kind of even a little bit do some with your own kids as they're kind of branching into their independent selves.
Yes, I'm really seeing our kids as individuals. And that's actually one of the things I most admire about you as I've gotten to know you over the years, just seeing the real genuine care you have for each of your children as individuals and wanting to get to know them and their interests and facilitating their personal growth. I love that about you. So,
Thank
um,
you.
well, like you mentioned, you're about to leave the elementary years
I
behind. You'll have all middle school and high school, which is just crazy. But
Yeah.
you have really loved and thrived in these older years, sort of the years that can sometimes intimidate people. So, what has most surprised you or delighted you about homeschooling those middle and high school years?
Yeah, that is a good question. I do want to preface it by saying I've always loved that age. I do have a little advantage in that way. I left elementary school to teach middle school by choice back when I was an elementary ed major. I had a degree in elementary ed, but moved up to middle school and loved it. And I worked with high school youth group at our church for, a long time. So that's always kind of been the age I've been drawn to naturally as a teacher. That said, it is different with your own kids. In both good and bad ways. So I have loved, though, just the discussions that have developed in our house. We've laid those elementary years, you lay such a foundation for conversation and openness and kind of how you want your household to feel. And the teen years is where I feel like the benefits of that have really been reaped. With kids who love to express their opinions, feel safe to do so, have opinions, because we've been asking good questions since they were little and getting them thinking. And I've really loved that. I mean, it's not fun when they challenge my own. I'm working on that, but it is great, and I've really enjoyed that. And of course, the independence. Not to say that they are completely independent. I just spent this morning with my 15-year-old helping her fill out her first job application, and contacting people to be, her references and trying to help her come up with a resume when you've never worked. I mean, so they're never like, oh, you're 15 now, you can do everything without me. But there is so much more independence. And I have both loved that and felt a little lost in the midst of all that. So that's a little bit of the transition I'm in right now, as there's no elementary schoolers left. But it's good. And I love it. Every stage is just brings beauty to embrace, even as you kind of miss other things.
Yeah. Have you, oh, I'm sure you have read Time of Wonder, that picture book by Robert McCloskey.
Oh, yes,
I
yes.
love that one. And I have always just been incredibly moved there at the end as they're leaving the island. And it says, a little bit sad about the place we are leaving, a little bit glad about the place we are going. It's a time of quiet wonder. And I'm getting goosebumps. I know. Oh, we were having,
You
yeah,
always get
I always
goosebumps, I
get
hear.
goosebumps. I do. It's a thing. My kids make fun of me. But I think that's true of so many of the seasons of motherhood. I was just talking to you in real life on Sunday about my baby who's now 5 and having to kind of say goodbye to those like mom of little years. I mean, he's
Yep.
still little, but it's a good thing. But there's that bittersweet quality where you're also saying goodbye to something. So, but it's really fun to see these big kids and their original ideas. That's fun.
Yes, it is. It's awesome.
Well, another thing that Mary is really great at, and if you don't follow her already, you need to do that on social media because she always shares just the coolest things she does with her family. And she is able to just bring adventure and fun into just the ordinary day. So I would love it if you could share with those of us who maybe being like extra fun doesn't come as naturally to. Do you have any strategies to share for bringing fun and adventure to the homeschool day?
Yes. One that I find a lot when I'm talking with moms is to step back a little bit, because you're probably a lot more fun than you think. Because you're possibly looking at someone else's fun and thinking, "Oh, I should be that." But maybe that's not your fun. So a lot of times moms will start saying to me, "Well, we're not, I'm not really fun." But then they start describing their house to me, and they're telling me all sorts of stuff that they do that their kids love. It's just not the same thing they're seeing on Instagram or in social media. So maybe what's really fun in their house is everyone loves to curl up with a good book in the afternoon for an hour together. That's not fun to my kids. It's fun to me. Or they're really into hiking, and they're always taking hikes together, or canoeing, or, all kinds of stuff that people are into. So one of the things I often suggest is to just step back and think, like, what do my kids and I enjoy? And just answer that. And if you don't know, ask your kids, because I'll tell you, they know what they enjoy and they're usually fine to say it. That said, I also think it's great to borrow fun. I love to get on Instagram and see something someone else is doing, some project, some routine they've added into their day, and go, "Ooh, that looks like it would be fun," and try it in my day. And sometimes it works and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, it was so much fun." And other times it's like, okay, their fun is definitely not our fun because nobody enjoyed this. So I think that there's a balance there with just knowing what is really fun for you and embracing it and calling it fun. And then also being open to borrowing ideas of fun from other people, looking for that inspiration.
I love that idea. I've actually never thought about the idea of just like, maybe I'm just not calling something fun because it doesn't look like, I'm not putting on glow sticks and dancing around
Right, right.
like you do. And I'm like, oh, I'm just not as fun as Mary, but our fun just is different. But that doesn't mean it's not fun for us. And that's okay.
Exactly. And call it fun.
All right. I now define myself as a fun mom.
That's right. We are all fun moms. It's just our fun looks different.
Yeah. Oh, that's like a big life lesson. I feel like I need to stop and pause here for a minute, though. We'll keep going. I'll process that afterwards.
A moment for silence of, how is Amy fun?
Well, one thing I think that you and I do share in common that we love is reading wonderful books and sharing stories with our kids, and really seeing that as an opportunity for discussion and growth and even sibling interaction, and just loving the power of a good book. And you have put on some amazing book clubs, talk about fun, over the years. So I would love to hear, like, how did you come up first with the idea of celebrating a book club in such a fun way? And then do you have any that have especially stood out in your mind?
Yeah, okay. I love to talk about book clubs. It all started when my oldest hit middle school, and discussion and friends and all this stuff was important. And I had literature goals, and suddenly she needed to read literature that really wasn't necessarily appropriate for what was Daniel at that point? First grader. So yeah, it was definitely time to have her reading her own books, not joining in only in family read aloud. And I started thinking, like, what is this going to look like? Like, should I take her out to coffee so we can discuss the book? Like, how are we going to have this book discussion? And I thought, oh my gosh, let's invite a few friends, see if they'll read the same book, and then we can all meet at Starbucks or a coffee shop and we can discuss it. So I talked to a few moms who had other 7th and 8th grade girls, and we all agreed, yeah, this will be a great idea. We'll all read the same book every month and the girls can all discuss it. Well, this also leads into some of my favorite book club memories, because what happened is that the first book we were reading to kick off the year was Catching Fire, which is book 2 in the Hunger Games series. And the mom who was going to host it, she decided I'll just host it at my house. She called me and was like, "Do you mind if I was thinking maybe it'd be really fun to like do some decorations, like the Hunger Games and have a cornucopia." And I was like, "Well, it's so funny you say that." And it was a September book club. I was like, "I was planning on being Effie Trinket for Halloween this year. What if I get my costume ready early and surprise the girls and I will dress as Effie Trinket for book club?" And so it kind of just took on a life of its own at that moment. Like she went all out with themed food. And if you've ever seen the movie, they drop these little parachutes with stuff into the arena to help out contestants. She had white helium balloons with little things on them on the table. And I showed up in a blonde wig. I had spray painted pink tips on it, a full dress. I mean, heels that, oh my gosh, like they're still in my closet. I'm like, how did I even wear them for an hour? And I brought a big glass bowl. And after the kids got their snacks, I made them count up the items they took, and we called it Tessera. And they had to put their name on a piece of paper, one for each of the items they took, and put it in the bowl. And so during discussion, I would draw a tribute's name. And oh my gosh, we just had so much fun. And one of the girls, who had quite a sense of humor, decided not to just put her own name on the slips of paper, but she wrote like characters from the book. So I'll never forget like reaching in the jar and pulling out like Peeta Mellark's name. And I was like, apparently Peeta is going to answer. And that humorous daughter of mine was the child who did that. And it just made for so many memories. And I thought, we're on to something here. Like, not that we have the energy to necessarily do it for every book club, but for the book clubs where we did, like what a memory for the kids to take with them about the time they sat around and Effie Trinket, drew their names. Or when we read Lord of the Flies, which was not the girls' favorite book, but we sat around a fire and we had a conch shell, and you could only answer the question if the conch shell was in your hands. And I made pig head shaped biscuits and put them on sticks. Oh my gosh. And it's just fun and goofy and memorable. And that's not to say we didn't have book clubs where we literally just had some cookies and some drinks and we still discussed literature. And we laughed just as hard at some of those book clubs. To this day, when we read Anne of Green Gables and the line when she yells at Miss Rachel Lynde, "I hate you, I hate you," all crack up because during that book club, we all would share our favorite lines. And one of the girls hated the book, so that was her favorite line. And it was just this beautiful atmosphere of laying the foundation of literary analysis for the future while having fun and discussing great books and making memories. So it started without us knowing, and then it just stayed.
I love that. Some of the best ideas start that way. And I wanted to ask you a question, follow up. One of the things you kind of said there in the middle was you don't have to do this like for every book. You don't have energy for this for every book. Because I think sometimes when we hear about someone who does like amazing book club celebrations or parties, we think, we've got too many books. I don't have time to have that many book club celebrations a year. That feels like a lot of work. Or I've got all these other little kids. So could you explain, like, how do you choose how many, or if you just do one a year, is that okay too? Or
well, you know what I'm going to say to that, right? Yeah, of course that's okay. What we did is we rotated hosts moms each month. And I think we did like 7 or 8 book clubs. And so there were about 7 or 8 moms. So it worked out well. Everyone hosted one. And it was kind of up to them. Did they want to do something or not? So actually, if you did do something in our particular situation, you were only doing it once. Like you had 1 month to go all out with this book for the girls, but that wasn't even a requirement. So some moms did. And if they did, and they were like, I don't feel equipped to do this, we would all brainstorm together ideas. If they didn't, then they just put out some snacks and some goodies for the girls to enjoy. And that was it. Like there was no real requirement to have to do that. So again, it just kind of happened naturally that some of the moms really loved that and they got really into it, and others didn't feel up for it. When I've done my own, my boys, I did a book club myself for like a local co-op that they were in. So I was in charge of it all. And what we did is September, October, November, and then I think January, February, March. So it was just 6 books. It wasn't the whole year, but it was once a month that I kind of dove in with another mom and did it. But I think if you did one, I mean, like, that's one per quarter. I mean, whatever worked for your family or for the people you're doing it with. And the other thing, this kind of jumps a little bit to another way to do it, is sometimes just the book club idea seems really overwhelming. Like this one day where you're doing all this stuff for a book. Another thing that I've suggested to moms, and actually wrote a guide to help them do it, is just to do little things in like their morning time or in their own homeschool instead of one huge celebration at the end. Once a week having a special snack that's out of the book, or you could call it Fun Friday, and you bake something that's mentioned in the book that you eat during read aloud time, or you kick off the book with a few decorations that the kids can enjoy that first week that are hanging in the house, or little things like that. So I feel like it's something that you can make work for you and the season of life you're in, because if you have a lot of little ones, it's going to look really different than when your youngest one is in 6th grade and pretty much everybody's can feed themselves lunch and you can do what you need to do.
Yeah, and that's really encouraging to hear that there's not just one right way to do a book club. And you don't say, if somebody's like, well, I don't have a group of friends who all want to get together and read the same book, that you can still just do it in your own family time and have your own celebration.
And I should mention, just when you're saying a group of friends too, just on a side note, we had a year too where we had public school friends in it and we met on a Friday night. So be flexible when you're thinking of that. It could be friends from soccer, and even if they're all in school, you could meet on a Saturday morning 4 times a year. Or like, there is so much flexibility if you just kind of open that box and are like, if this is something I really want to make work for my kid, how can I make it work? And there's so many different paths that you could kind of figure it out. No one right way, whether it's with just your family, whether it's from friends. I was thinking this summer, now we're going to have to see because coronavirus has kind of changed everything, of inviting just the neighborhood boys with my boys. There's about 5 or 6 boys in the neighborhood who run around together. Like, let's have a little book club just in June, July, and August right here in the neighborhood with the neighborhood boys. So it would only be my boys who are even homeschooled.
Oh, that's a great idea. Kind of think outside the box and look for other options. Yeah. So if somebody is wanting to start, do you have any recommendations for a good book for them to start with? Or like someone who's like, I don't know, I need someone to hold my hand.
Well, for in general, starting a book club, I actually wrote a guide called How to Start a Book Club. No, I think it's called Book Club Planning Guide. Real formal, that literally walks through like who to invite, how to organize your book club. Because of course I've tried lots of things, from email to Google Docs to Facebook groups, what worked, what didn't, what were the up and down sides, how to pick your titles and where to find them. I mean, it just literally walks your hand through everything you might need to think about. Hold your hand. It doesn't walk your hand. Hold your hand and walks you through everything you might need to think about. And there's some planning pages in there. I don't know that it includes book suggestions. So that's just so open-ended depending on the age of your kids. So for me, that's a lot of just kind of asking friends, the other moms involved, Google, what book should I read with my 6th grader? And usually there's some answers out there, or your favorite curriculum. I mean, that would be one awesome way to bring this into your own homeschool, is to look at the books you're going to read in history or science or with your literature program and pick 3 of them. Be like, hey, let's do something with these 3 books this year. Maybe it's with other families, maybe it's just with ourselves, but it's already books we're going to have to read. So let's do something fun to enjoy them.
And then you're not adding like one more thing. Because a lot of times when you hear fun ideas, I always feel like, I already feel tired. I don't want to add one more thing. But finding a way to incorporate it with what you're already studying just makes so much sense.
Yeah, that would work much.
Have you ever done this with an adult book club? Because I'm starting to think this would be fun with like adult friends.
I have discussed it with friends. What we did is when we read Gentlemen in Moscow, we all have Russian tea.
Oh, I was
Specific
thinking a
Russian
Moscow
tea.
Mule.
Oh, no, no. We had a Russian tea that was not very good. That's all I'm going to say. And I love tea, but it had these tones in it that was not my thing.
Disappointing.
But it would be fun. It would be so much fun. And maybe now as my kids are getting older, maybe the next season holds that. Who knows?
What is the next book that you think you will be doing a book club with your kids? Do you know yet, or have you not decided?
No, again, because my summer plans kind of got foiled. So right now in our house, we're doing a lot of books that have become movies just for fun. So we're reading some books and then we're going to watch the movie. And it seems like everyone in the house is reading a book series right now, either on their own or with me, that has been turned into a movie. So we've got a lot of movies coming. And that seems to be working because of quarantine. So you can always throw a little fun into movie night with some fun themed food. We did that for the movie The Martian, which does have a young reader's edition. And you can read that book. And then when we watched the movie, one of the things we did is he had packed like certain, gosh, it's been a while, food packs for himself, or he had things and I had the things packed for the kids. Like when this happens in the movie, they get to eat this. And when this, and that was kind of fun. So
you could have like baked potatoes for dinner or something.
We did have a potato bar for lunch, and more fun for the kids, but a little gross, is I baked some brownies and then we rolled them. So they looked more like some of the fertilizer he had to use to grow his potatoes.
That's awesome.
And that was very delightful. The kids were like, it's a brownie, right?
Just checking, Mom.
Double checking here. So, you can have some fun.
I love that. And you have a great resource for a conversation guide starter for books that have been made into movies. So
oh, yes.
I'll include that in the show notes here too.
Great. Yeah. Just questions if you want to have a discussion at the end.
Perfect. Well, Mary, where are all the places people can find you online?
Well, the main one is on my blog, maryhannahwilson.com. You can also go to celebrateabook.com and it will take you to a special place in my blog, but you can even find that from the front page. And then on Instagram, there's Mary Wilson blog, or there's Celebrate a Book. And those are probably the two main, what am I forgetting? I think those are the two main places I hang out. Oh, Facebook. I do hang out on Facebook. Facebook, we have Celebrate a Book, and I have Mary Wilson blog. And then there's actually a group that will be starting for Celebrate a Book. So it's groups/Celebrate a Book. And there I'm hoping will be a place for discussions like this, where parents can say, hey, I want to get started, and people can chime in with their own ideas and what's working for them, because I'm fully aware that what necessarily works for my personality and my kids and my house isn't what always works for everyone. So I thought that would be a really great place to kind of group think sometimes for ideas, and for something that maybe is working for someone else that you're like, oh, now that I could do. So there'll also be a Facebook group you can find.
Very fun. And I'll put all of that linked up over at humilityanddoxology.com when this conversation posts. So
excellent. So excited for that.
Thank you so much for coming and chatting with me. You're one of my favorite people to follow, and I'm really glad that you get to come and chat with me today.
It was good to be here. Next time, if we do it again, we should do it in person and like sit together on the sofa.
That would be fun. Okay, next
year.
Allowed. Whenever we're allowed, we're on the same couch. Sounds good. We'll schedule that for next year.
Exactly.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, Amy.